bet. Cowboy rescued a native girl from punishment. Next dawn, she knocked on his cabin door. The sun was beginning to set over the vast plains, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. John, a lone cowboy, guided his horse slowly along the dusty trail that led away from the nearest town. His cabin, small but sturdy, sat near a gentle stream surrounded by tall grass that swayed in the evening breeze. John had spent many years on these plains, living quietly, working hard to care for his cattle, and keeping to himself. Most days were simple and predictable, but today, something unusual caught his attention. From a distance, he noticed a group of villagers gathered near a small clearing. Their voices were sharp and angry, carrying across the field. At first, John thought it was a typical argument, something he preferred to avoid. But as he rode closer, he realized the situation was different. A young girl, no older than 14 or 15, stood at the center of the group. Her dark hair was tangled, and her clothes were torn at the edges. The villagers seemed angry, pointing fingers and shouting words he could not completely understand. From the looks on their faces, it was clear that she was being punished for something. John slowed his horse, careful not to make sudden movements. He could see fear in the girl's eyes, and that fear struck a chord deep inside him. He knew that fear could paralyze a person, and seeing someone so young being treated harshly made his stomach twist. John had always believed in fairness and injustice, especially against someone who could not defend herself, made his heart ache. Bang. He felt the old, familiar pull, the one that told him to step in when others were hurting. He dismounted quietly and walked closer, making sure his movements were calm and measured. The villagers noticed him, and their anger seemed to shift toward this stranger who had suddenly appeared. One man stepped forward, his face red and stern, and spoke in a language John did not understand. The tone, however, was unmistakable. Pay. It was a warning. Leave, or there will be trouble. John stayed calm. He had faced danger before, and he knew that a firm but steady presence could sometimes calm angry people. He raised his hand slightly to show he meant no harm, and in a clear voice said, "She's just a child. Let her go." His words were simple, but there was a firmness in his tone that could not be ignored. The villagers looked at each other, unsure of how to respond. Their punishment was meant to teach a lesson, to maintain order, and they were not used to outsiders interfering. But John did not back down. He stepped closer to the girl, keeping his eyes gentle and kind so she would feel safe. "Come with me," he said softly, addressing her. "You don't need to be afraid. Pay. I will keep you safe." The girl's eyes widened. She hesitated, torn between fear of the villagers and the hope offered by this stranger. Slowly, cautiously, she took a step toward him. Her small hand reached out, trembling slightly, and John guided her toward his horse. The villagers began to murmur, some shouting in protest, but John ignored them. He knew that staying calm and moving steadily was the best way to protect her. Mounting his horse carefully, John helped the girl onto the saddle in front of him. She held on tightly, still wary, but relieved to have someone on her side. As they rode away, the villagers' voices faded behind them. John kept his eyes on the path ahead, making sure they stayed out of sight. He knew the plains could be dangerous, but he trusted that together they could reach his cabin safely. The journey was quiet except for the soft sound of the horse's hooves against the dirt. The girl, who introduced herself as Ayana in broken English, clung to John's back, her small frame shaking slightly. He spoke to her gently, telling her stories about the plains, about the stars that would soon appear in the sky, and about the animals that roamed freely.
His voice was calm, steady, and kind, and slowly Ayana began to relax.
By the time they reached the small cabin, the sun had disappeared completely, leaving a soft glow of twilight. John led the horse to the stable and helped Ayana down. She looked around the cabin, taking in the simple wooden structure, the small fireplace, and the modest furniture. It was far from grand, but it was warm and safe, a stark contrast to the fear she had just escaped. John set a small fire in the hearth, the flames dancing and casting shadows across the room. He offered Ayana some food, a simple meal of bread and stew, but she could not eat much. Her stomach twisted with fear and worry, but she nibbled slowly, trusting John more with each bite. They sat together in the quiet evening, the crackling fire providing comfort as the night grew darker. As the stars began to appear in the night sky, John realized that this encounter, which had started as a moment of sudden bravery, had become something much deeper. Ayana was not just a child in need of protection. She was someone with her own story, her own courage, and her own strength. And John felt something he had not felt in years, a connection with another person, one that was honest, simple, and real. Ayana eventually spoke in her soft, hesitant voice, telling John about her village and the strict rules that governed it. She spoke of her family, the expectations placed upon her, and the fear she had grown accustomed to. John listened carefully, understanding that her words were more than just a story. They were a window into her world.
He nodded, asked gentle questions, and made sure she knew he was listening without judgment.
The night grew deeper, and the cabin was quiet except for the occasional crackle of the fire and the wind rustling the grass outside. John offered Ayana a small blanket and a place to rest on the floor near the fire. She curled up, still tense but slowly finding comfort in the safety of the cabin. John watched over her, knowing that sleep might come slowly for her, but determined to provide the protection she needed. Passed, and though John could not sleep fully, he felt a quiet satisfaction. Today, he had acted when it mattered most. He had stepped in to help someone in danger, and though it had been risky, he had done the right thing. And now, in the quiet of the plains, he found a sense of purpose he had not felt in a long time. Outside, the night sky stretched endlessly, filled with stars that seemed to shine just a little brighter in the darkness. Inside the cabin, two lives had unexpectedly crossed paths, one of experience and strength, the other of youth and courage. Together, they faced the unknown, forming a bond that neither of them fully understood yet, but that would change both of their lives forever. The plains were vast, and the night was long, but within the small wooden cabin, there was safety, warmth, and the first flicker of trust between a cowboy and the girl he had saved. John knew this was only the beginning of a story that would challenge them, teach them, and bring them together in ways neither could have imagined. And as he watched Ayana drift into a light, uneasy sleep, he felt a quiet promise forming in his heart. He would protect her, no matter what came next. The night passed slowly, and the first hints of dawn would soon arrive, but for now, there was peace. A young girl, saved from fear and punishment, rested safely in a small cabin on the plains. And a cowboy, hardened by years of solitude, had found something he had almost forgotten: the courage to care for someone else. The morning light spilled gently through the small windows of John's cabin, casting a soft glow across the wooden floor and the small hearth. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of the plains, the grass, and the distant stream. Ayana stirred under her thin blanket, blinking at the unfamiliar surroundings. She had spent the night curled up, feeling both safe and nervous, unsure of what the day would bring. The events of the previous evening still lingered in her mind. The fear, the angry villagers, and the unexpected kindness of the cowboy who had saved her. John, already awake, was tending to the small fire in the hearth. He moved quietly, careful not to startle Ayana. He brought over a small bowl of warm porridge and a cup of water, setting it gently on a low table. "Beat," he said softly. "It will help you feel better." His voice was calm and steady, as if it carried a promise that nothing would harm her while she was there. Ayana looked at the food, hesitant. Her stomach was still twisted with worry, and the memory of the angry villagers made her hand shake slightly. Buzz. Yet she could sense that John's offer was genuine. Slowly, she picked up the spoon and tasted the porridge. It was warm, simple, and filling. She ate quietly, and John watched her carefully, not pressing her to talk, but letting her feel comfortable at her own pace. Bus. Once she finished, John gestured for her to follow him outside. The morning sun was warm on her skin, and the air smelled fresh and clean. Psst. They walked together toward the small stream near the cabin, the sound of running water soothing her nerves. John spoke in a gentle tone, telling her about the land, the animals that roamed the plains, and the small routines he followed every day. Ayana listened carefully, fascinated by his stories and the way he seemed to know every inch of the land.
She finally found the courage to speak, her voice soft and hesitant.
I live in a village, she said, her words halting but clear. Punishment, harsh.
Sometimes. She looked down at the ground, afraid John might judge her or her people, but he only nodded, showing understanding. I see, he said. That must be very hard. For hours they walked and talked, the silence between words comfortable rather than tense. Ayana began to relax, realizing that she could trust John. He didn't rush her to speak or explain herself. He simply shared his world with her, letting her feel safe and valued. She began to describe the small joys of her life in the village, like the songs she would sing with her family, or the games she played with other children. For the first time in a long while, she felt a small spark of happiness back at the cabin. John showed her the simple chores of daily life. He taught her how to fetch water from the stream, how to feed the animals, and how to keep the small cabin tidy. Ayana was clumsy at first, her hands untrained in these tasks, but John was patient, guiding her with kind words and gentle corrections.
It's okay, he said when she dropped a bucket of water.
Everyone starts somewhere. You'll learn. Slowly, she began to feel a sense of accomplishment, proud that she could do these tasks without fear. Psst. As the day passed, they shared small meals together, each one a quiet ritual that strengthened their bond. Ayana began to open up more, asking John questions about his life. He told her about growing up on the plains, about the long days of work, and the quiet nights under the stars. He spoke about the people he had known, the friends he had lost, and the lessons he had learned. Ayana listened with wide eyes, absorbing every word. She realized that John's life, though simple and solitary, was filled with courage and wisdom. In the afternoon, John decided to teach Ayana how to ride a horse. At first, she was nervous, afraid she might fall or lose control. John stood beside her, steadying the horse and encouraging her gently. "It's okay to be afraid," he said, "but trust yourself and trust the horse." Slowly, she climbed onto the saddle, her small hands gripping the reins. John guided her movements, showing her how to sit properly and how to communicate with the horse through gentle cues. At first, the horse moved awkwardly, making Ayana stumble slightly. She laughed nervously, and John smiled, telling her that mistakes were part of learning. Step by step, she grew more confident. By the end of the lesson, she was riding in a small circle, her face lit up with pride and excitement. She laughed freely, a sound that had not been heard since before the villagers' punishment. John watched her with quiet satisfaction, knowing that today had given her a sense of freedom she had not felt in a long time. As evening approached, the sky turned soft shades of pink and purple. John and Ayana sat outside the cabin, resting after a long day. The air was filled with the sounds of nature, the chirping of crickets, the rustling of the grass, and the distant calls of birds returning to their nests. Ayana leaned against John's side, tired but happy. But she felt a sense of safety and warmth she had never experienced before. For the first time, she realized that she could feel calm without fear. Breath. John looked at her and said softly, "You are very brave, Ayana. You faced fear yesterday, and today you learned so much."
I'm proud of you, Ayana smiled shyly, feeling a strange but comforting warmth in her chest.
Bah. She had never been praised like this, and the words gave her courage and hope. She realized that not all adults were harsh or unkind. Some, like John, were willing to help, protect, and teach with patience and understanding. Night began to fall again, and the stars appeared one by one, shining like tiny lamps in the dark sky. John built a small fire outside, and they sat together quietly, watching the flames dance. Ayana told him about the stories her family shared at night, the legends of the stars, the animals, and the spirits that watched over their people. John listened, fascinated by her words and the rich culture she came from. He admired her respect for her heritage and the wisdom in her young voice. The quiet moments brought them closer, a bond forming that neither could fully explain yet. They shared laughter, stories, and even comfortable silences, learning to understand one another without the need for many words. John realized that this small girl had a courage and determination far beyond her years, and Ayana realized that this cowboy, with his quiet strength, was someone she could trust completely. As night deepened, John prepared a small place for Ayana to sleep inside the cabin. He offered her the same thin blanket as before, but this time she did not hesitate. She curled up near the fire, feeling warmth in her body and comfort in her heart. John stayed awake a little longer, watching her sleep peacefully, feeling a sense of purpose he had not felt in years. Outside, the plains were calm and quiet, the night wrapping the cabin in a gentle embrace. Inside, a young girl and a cowboy had started a journey together, one of trust, learning, and growing courage. They did not know what challenges the next days would bring, but they felt ready to face them together. Ayana's fear of punishment had been replaced, at least for now, by a quiet strength, and John's solitude had been touched by the spark of companionship. In the stillness of the night, John thought about how quickly life could change. One day he was riding alone on the plains, and the next, a small girl had appeared at his cabin, bringing with her the weight of fear, hope, and a new beginning. He knew that helping her would not always be easy, but he also knew it was the right thing to do. And for Ayana, she realized that sometimes courage and trust could come from the most unexpected places. A lone cowboy on the edge of the plains. The first night in safety had passed, and with it a small but meaningful step toward a new life. Ayana had begun to feel the warmth of kindness, the joy of learning, and the strength to face the unknown. John had discovered that even a solitary life could be changed by a single act of bravery and compassion.
As the fire burned low and the stars twinkled overhead, they both drifted into sleep, ready for whatever the next day might bring.
And so, the bond between the cowboy and the young girl grew stronger, built on trust, courage, and the quiet beauty of simple moments shared under the vast, endless sky. The morning sun rose slowly over the plains, casting a warm golden light on John's small cabin and the swaying grass beyond. Birds chirped cheerfully in the distance, and the gentle breeze carried the fresh scent of wildflowers. Ayana stirred, blinking sleepily, and realized for the first time that she felt safe. Not just physically, but in a deeper, quiet way she had never experienced before. The fear that had haunted her for so long was still there, faint and fragile, but it was no longer the only thing she felt. John was already outside, tending to the horses. He moved with ease and confidence, brushing down the animals and checking their saddles. When he noticed Ayana approaching, he smiled and waved her over. "Good morning," he said, his voice gentle. "Today, we can do more than just chores." I think it's time you learned how to care for the land around the cabin, too. Ayana's eyes lit up with curiosity. She had enjoyed learning the small tasks of the cabin, but the idea of exploring the land and learning more about it excited her. As they walked through the open fields, John explained the patterns of the plains, the way the streams flowed, where the wild herbs grew, and which areas were safe to walk. He pointed out signs of animals, teaching her to notice tracks and listen to the subtle sounds of nature. Ayana listened carefully, absorbing every detail. She was amazed at how much John knew, and how calmly he shared it with her. As they moved further from the cabin, John began teaching her how to gather food from the land. He showed her which berries were safe to eat and which plants could be used for medicine. Ayana marveled at the knowledge he had, realizing that survival was not just about strength, but about observation and understanding. She practiced carefully, mimicking his movements and asking questions whenever she was unsure. John encouraged her patiently, praising her efforts and correcting mistakes with gentle guidance. Hours passed, and Ayana began to feel a sense of pride she had never known before. For the first time, she realized that she could do more than just obey rules or survive punishment. She could learn, grow, and take responsibility for herself. Each small success filled her with confidence, and John's quiet approval made her feel seen and valued. He noticed the change in her demeanor too, the way her shoulders lifted slightly, the spark in her eyes, and the small smiles that appeared more often.
After a morning filled with learning, they returned to the cabin for a simple lunch.
As they ate, Ayana shared more about her life in the village. She spoke of her family, the customs, and the harsh rules that governed her world. But her voice was tinged with sadness, but also with determination. John listened attentively, never interrupting, showing that he respected her experiences and her feelings. "It sounds like you faced many challenges," he said softly. "But you are strong, and you've survived. That takes courage." Breath. The afternoon brought a different lesson. John decided it was time for Ayana to learn how to defend herself, not with violence, but with awareness and confidence. He showed her how to move quietly, how to observe her surroundings, and how to react calmly in stressful situations. They practiced walking through the fields, listening for subtle sounds, and responding to imaginary threats. Ayana took the lessons seriously, realizing that these skills could help her stay safe, not just now, but in the future as well.
As the sun began to dip lower in the sky, John suggested they ride the horses again.
This time, he allowed Ayana more freedom, guiding her only when necessary. She rode with growing confidence, feeling the wind on her face and the strength of the horse beneath her. Each gallop made her feel alive, free, and capable. John watched her with quiet pride, knowing that these small victories were helping her heal from fear and uncertainty. Later, as they returned to the cabin, John noticed that Ayana was unusually quiet. He asked her gently if something was wrong. At first, she hesitated, then admitted that she was worried about returning to the village. Perhaps, they will punish me again," she whispered. Her voice trembled, and she looked down at her hands. John knelt beside her and placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We will figure it out," he said calmly. "No one will hurt you while you are with me. You are not alone anymore." Ayana felt a warmth spread through her chest. For the first time, someone believed in her, not just her abilities, but her worth. She realized that fear could be replaced by trust, and courage could grow even in the darkest moments. The bond between them strengthened as she understood that John's protection was not just about safety, it was about respect, kindness, and belief in her potential. They sat together outside, watching the sky turn shades of deep purple and blue. The first stars appeared, twinkling faintly in the distance. John spoke softly about his life on the plains, about the struggles he had faced alone, and the small joys that kept him going. Ayana listened intently, realizing that everyone had challenges, and that courage could take many forms. Thus, she began to share more about herself, opening her heart slowly, telling him about dreams she had kept secret and hopes she had been afraid to voice. That night, as they returned to the cabin, the bond between them was undeniable. John prepared a small fire and they sat together in its warm glow. Ayana spoke of her village, her fears, and her aspirations. John shared wisdom from his life, telling her that mistakes were part of learning and fear could be a guide if one faced it with patience and awareness. The conversation flowed naturally, bridging gaps of age, experience, and culture. As night deepened, John made a small space for Ayana to sleep comfortably near the fire. She curled up with her blanket, feeling a sense of security she had never known before. John watched her for a while, reflecting on the day. He realized that the girl he had saved was not just fragile or scared. She was resilient, intelligent, and courageous. And he understood that he was not only guiding her but also learning from her, gaining a new perspective on trust, courage, and the quiet strength of the human spirit. The plains outside were calm, filled with the soft sounds of nature, the rustle of grass, the distant calls of night birds, and the gentle whisper of the wind. Inside the cabin, a young girl and a cowboy had begun to build a life of shared learning, mutual respect, and growing courage. Each moment, each lesson, each small victory was a step toward healing, growth, and understanding. Ayana felt the weight of the day settle into her muscles, but her mind was alive with thoughts, questions, and hope. She realized that courage was not the absence of fear, but the ability to move forward despite it. She had faced fear yesterday, learned skills today, and had begun to understand the strength she carried within herself. And she knew that John, with his quiet guidance and unwavering patience, would be there to help her discover even more about her own potential. John, too, felt a quiet satisfaction. He had always been a solitary man, accustomed to living alone on the plains. But the presence of Ayana had reminded him that life's purpose was often found in connection with others. By helping her, he had discovered a renewed sense of meaning, a chance to teach, protect, and witness the growth of someone brave and deserving. Their bond was no longer just one of protection. It was one of friendship, understanding, and shared courage. The fire burned low, and the stars shone brightly above. Ayana drifted into a light sleep, her mind filled with lessons, hope, and the quiet joy of trust. John stayed awake a little longer, reflecting on the changes in both their lives. He knew that challenges lay ahead. Returning to the village would not be simple, and the world beyond the cabin could be unforgiving. But he also knew that together they were stronger, and that courage, kindness, and wisdom could guide them through the unknown. The night passed quietly, and the first hint of dawn promised another day of learning, growth, and deepening trust. Ayana had begun to transform not only in skill and knowledge but in heart and spirit. She had discovered that she was not alone, that she could rely on another person, and that courage could grow even in the most uncertain circumstances. And John realized that life, even in its quietest moments, could bring unexpected rewards, the chance to guide, protect, and form a bond that would leave a lasting impact on both their lives. As the plains lay bathed in the soft morning light, the cowboy and the young girl prepared to face a new day together. Each step, each lesson, and each moment of trust was building a story of resilience, courage, and friendship, one that neither of them would ever forget. And so, the days continued, each filled with learning, challenges, and small victories. Ayana grew more confident, more capable, and more trusting, while John found purpose, companionship, and a renewed appreciation for the courage found in unexpected places. Together they navigated the plains, the unknown, and the slow but steady transformation that comes from kindness, patience, and shared determination. The morning air was cool, carrying the faint scent of dew from the plains. The sun had just begun to rise, spreading golden light across the cabin and the swaying grass. John and Ayana stepped outside, ready to face a new day, their bond growing stronger with every shared moment. The lessons of the past days had taught Ayana many skills, and she felt a growing confidence in herself. John had noticed her determination and knew that she was ready for more challenges, lessons that would test her courage in ways neither of them could have imagined. John decided it was time to introduce Ayana to a deeper understanding of the land. He led her to a small hill not far from the cabin, one that offered a view stretching miles into the distance. From there, the plain seemed endless, golden in the morning light, dotted with small clusters of trees and the occasional wandering animal. "The land teaches," John said softly, pointing to the horizon, bare.
It shows you danger and safety. It gives you food, water, and shelter if you know how to watch and listen.
Ayana listened intently, absorbing every word. She had learned about basic survival, but John's teachings now went beyond that. He taught her to notice subtle changes in the environment, how the wind shifted, how animals behaved differently depending on the weather, and how clouds could signal a storm approaching. Ayana practiced observing and predicting, her young mind sharpening as she began to understand the rhythms of nature. John watched her closely, impressed by how quickly she grasped the lessons. Her eyes sparkled with curiosity, and her hands moved with increasing confidence as she applied what she had learned. The lessons were not just practical, they were also about trust and courage. John began to test Ayana gently, asking her to make decisions on her own, whether to climb a small ridge, cross a narrow stream, or pick the best herbs for food. Each decision required thought, observation, and bravery. Ayana hesitated at first, unsure if she could succeed. But John reminded her, "You are stronger than you think." "Trust yourself. You can do this." Slowly, she began to take small risks, learning that failure was part of growth and that courage was often quiet, steady, and persistent. One afternoon, as they were exploring a new part of the plains, dark clouds began to gather on the horizon. The wind picked up, rustling the grass and bending the trees. John noticed the change immediately and realized a storm was approaching. "We need to find shelter quickly," he said calmly. He guided Ayana toward a natural grove of trees, their branches forming a protective canopy. The sky darkened, and soon heavy raindrops began to fall. Ayana felt a thrill of fear mixed with excitement. She remembered the lessons John had taught her: to stay calm, observe, and act wisely. Together they found a safe spot under the trees, waiting for the storm to pass. During the storm, John encouraged Ayana to reflect on her journey so far. "Look at how far you've come," he said. "You faced fear yesterday, learned new skills today, and now you can stay calm even in a storm. That is courage." Ayana looked at him, feeling a sense of pride and accomplishment. She realized that courage was not just about fighting or running away. It was about understanding, patience, and trusting oneself. After the storm passed, the sky cleared, revealing a rainbow stretching across the plains. Ayana's eyes lit up, and she ran forward to see it more closely. John followed, smiling at her excitement. That simple moment, filled with color and light, became a symbol of hope and resilience. Ayana understood that life could be unpredictable and sometimes frightening, but it could also be beautiful and rewarding if faced with courage and patience. In the following days, John decided it was time to teach Ayana more about protecting herself and others. He introduced her to basic self-defense techniques, emphasizing awareness, balance, and quick thinking rather than violence. Ayana practiced moving quietly, observing her surroundings, and reacting to imaginary threats. She learned to recognize danger before it approached and to stay calm under pressure. Each exercise strengthened her confidence and trust in her abilities. John noticed that she was growing not only in skill but also in character. developing a quiet strength that impressed him deeply. Base. One evening, as they returned to the cabin after a long day, they noticed smoke rising in the distance. John's eyes narrowed, recognizing the signs of a fire near the village. He realized that the situation could be dangerous, not only for the villagers but also for Ayanna.
We need to be careful, he said, his voice serious.
But we may be able to help. Ayanna felt a mix of fear and determination.
She knew that this could be a test of everything she had learned, her courage, her observation skills, and her ability to make decisions under pressure. They rode toward the village cautiously, observing the situation from a safe distance. John explained the plan calmly, showing Ayanna how to assess danger without panicking. Together they moved closer, finding ways to assist without putting themselves at unnecessary risk. Ayanna noticed that her heart did not race as it once had. She felt steady, capable, and focused. She realized that the lessons John had taught her were not just about survival. They were about understanding the world, preparing for challenges, and acting wisely even when fear was present. The village situation tested both of them. They helped guide villagers to safety, identified areas that needed attention, and assisted those who were too frightened to act on their own. Ayanna discovered a new sense of responsibility, realizing that her courage and skills could make a real difference in the lives of others. John watched with pride as she acted decisively, remembering the frightened girl he had rescued not long ago. Now she was standing tall, strong, and confident, ready to face challenges head-on. After the situation was under control, John and Ayanna returned to the cabin, exhausted but satisfied. The events had been intense, but they had learned valuable lessons about bravery, observation, and teamwork. That night, as they sat by the fire, Ayanna reflected on how much she had changed. The fear that had dominated her life was now tempered with confidence, knowledge, and trust in herself. She realized that courage was not about being fearless, but about acting wisely despite fear. John, too, reflected on the day. He realized that Ayanna had grown beyond his expectations, developing skills, awareness, and a quiet strength that inspired him. But he understood that their journey together had not only taught her, but also reminded him of the importance of patience, trust, and mentorship. Their bond was no longer just about protection. It was about mutual growth, understanding, and the shared journey of learning to face the world with courage. The following days continued in a rhythm of exploration, learning, and shared experience. Ayanna practiced her skills under John's guidance, facing new challenges with determination and focus. She learned to move confidently across the plains, care for animals, identify resources, and act wisely in uncertain situations. John continued to provide guidance, encouragement, and support, helping her refine her abilities and trust in herself. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, John and Ayanna sat quietly on a small hill overlooking the plains. The sky was painted with shades of orange, pink, and purple, and the wind whispered gently through the grass.
Ayanna turned to John, her eyes shining with gratitude and determination.
I am ready, she said softly. I am ready for what comes next. John nodded, understanding the weight of her words. He realized that the lessons they had shared were preparing her not just for the challenges of the plains, but for the challenges of life. Courage, observation, and wisdom were not just survival skills. They were the tools for facing any obstacle, any fear, and any uncertain future. That night, as the stars appeared overhead, Ayanna slept peacefully, knowing that she had grown stronger and more capable. John stayed awake reflecting on their journey. He knew that challenges would continue to come, but he also knew that together they had the strength, knowledge, and courage to face whatever lay ahead. Their bond, tested and strengthened through shared experiences, had become unbreakable. The plains were calm and quiet, but both John and Ayanna understood that life could change in an instant. The lessons of courage, trust, and preparation had prepared them for the unknown, giving them the confidence to face it together. As the fire burned low and the night deepened, the two reflected on how far they had come, from fear and uncertainty to trust, courage, and shared purpose. And so, the days continued, each one bringing new challenges, lessons, and victories. Ayana's confidence and skill grew, and John's respect and admiration for her courage deepened. Together they faced the unknown, learning that strength was found not only in skill but in patience, trust, and understanding. The plains had become a place of growth, courage, and companionship. A place where two lives, so different yet so connected, were shaping each other in profound and lasting ways. The first light of dawn stretched across the plains, soft and golden, casting long shadows behind the cabin and illuminating the grass that swayed gently in the morning breeze. Ayana stirred, blinking against the light, and for the first time in many days she felt calm. She had grown stronger, braver, and more confident during her time with John. Her mind replayed the events of the past days, lessons learned, fears overcome, and a trust formed that she had never imagined possible.
Becked. Today, though, she knew would be different. Today, it was time to return to her village.
Bay. John was already awake, tending to the horses and checking the supplies for the journey. He moved with quiet efficiency, his expression calm but thoughtful. He knew the return to the village would not be simple. There were still those who might question Ayana's safety, who might doubt the wisdom of allowing her freedom, and who might still punish her unfairly. But John also knew that Ayana was ready. She had learned courage, observation, and decision-making skills that would guide her safely through whatever challenges awaited. Ayana stepped outside, her small frame silhouetted against the rising sun. She had packed a small bundle with food, water, and a few belongings. Her eyes met John's, and she felt a swell of gratitude and determination. "I am ready," she said softly, her voice steady. "Thank you for everything." John nodded, his expression gentle. "You've grown stronger than you know," he said. "Trust yourself and you will do fine." The ride back toward the village was quiet at first, the plains stretching endlessly around them. The morning air was crisp, carrying the scents of grass, earth, and distant trees. Ayana sat tall on the horse, her hands steady on the reins. She remembered all of John's lessons: how to read the land, how to notice subtle changes, how to stay calm under pressure. Every step she took was guided by the confidence she had built, and every glance at John reminded her that she had someone who believed in her. As they approached the outskirts of the village, Ayana's heart began to race. Memories of harsh punishments, angry voices, and fearful nights filled her mind. She tightened her grip on the reins, breathing slowly as John guided her forward. "Remember what you've learned," he whispered. "Observe, stay calm, and act wisely." She nodded, focusing on each detail: the positions of people in the streets, the movement of animals, the wind carrying sounds from afar. She felt ready, equipped with the knowledge and courage she had gained over the past days. When they entered the village, some villagers noticed them immediately. There were murmurs and curious glances. A few recognized Ayana and recalled the punishment she had suffered. John remained calm, his presence steady and reassuring. Ayana dismounted carefully, standing tall despite the nervous flutter in her chest. But she realized that courage was not the absence of fear. It was standing strong and moving forward despite it.
Ayana approached her family's home cautiously, her eyes scanning for signs of tension or hostility.
John followed behind, silently supportive but allowing her to take the lead. Her family emerged, their expressions a mix of surprise, concern, and curiosity. Ayana's mother stepped forward, worry etched on her face. "Ayana," she said softly, "are you safe?" Ayana nodded, her voice clear. "I am safe. I have learned much. Bye."
I am strong now.
The villagers gathered slowly, curious about the transformation in the young girl.
They noticed her posture, her calm demeanor, and the confidence in her eyes. Whispers passed through the crowd, questions, amazement, and quiet admiration. Ayana's courage had not only protected herself, but had also inspired those who witnessed it. John observed quietly, knowing that the lessons he had shared had prepared her for this moment. Ayana explained to her family and the villagers how she had survived and what she had learned. She spoke of courage, observation, and the importance of trust and kindness. Her words were simple yet filled with wisdom beyond her years. She shared stories of the plains, the skills she had gained, and the ways in which she had learned to face fear, breath. The villagers listened attentively, their respect for her growing with every word. Her family embraced her, relief and pride evident on their faces. But Ayana's mother whispered, "We are proud of you."
You are brave.
Ayana felt a warmth spread through her heart. She realized that courage could change not only one's own life, but also the way others saw and treated you. Her journey had taught her that strength came from learning, patience, and facing challenges head-on. John prepared to leave, knowing his role in Ayana's life had reached a natural pause. Ayana approached him, her eyes shining with gratitude and affection. "Thank you," she said simply. "I will never forget what you have taught me." John smiled, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Remember what you've learned. Trust yourself. Be brave. This. You have all it takes to face the world." The villagers who had initially been wary of the outsider now saw John in a new light. His calm bravery, patience, and guidance had saved the girl and taught her valuable lessons. They understood that his intentions had been honorable and that his actions had changed Ayana's life forever. Some approached him with nods of respect and quiet thanks. John accepted them with his usual humility, knowing that the real reward was seeing Ayana thrive. As John rode away from the village, Ayana watched him go, feeling a mix of emotions. She was proud, grateful, and inspired. She knew that life would continue to bring challenges, but she also knew that she had the skills, courage, and confidence to face them. The plains had taught her strength, John had taught her wisdom, and together they had prepared her for whatever lay ahead. In the days that followed, Ayana continued to practice what she had learned. She explored the village and surrounding lands with confidence, helping where she could and sharing her knowledge with other children. She taught them about observation, kindness, and courage, becoming a source of inspiration in her own right. Her family watched with pride as their daughter blossomed into a young leader, shaped by her experiences and strengthened by the trust and guidance of a single cowboy who had believed in her. John, back at his cabin, reflected on the journey. He realized that life's purpose often revealed itself through acts of kindness, courage, and mentorship. By helping Ayana, he had not only changed her life, but had also reminded himself of the importance of connection, trust, and guiding others. The plains, with their vast horizons and quiet beauty, had become a place of growth, learning, and profound human connection.
Weeks later, Ayana returned to the cabin once more, not out of need, but out of respect and friendship. She brought small gifts, herbs she had learned to cultivate, simple crafts, and a bundle of stories she had collected from her village.
John welcomed her warmly, pleased to see that their bond had grown beyond necessity into something deeper, mutual respect, friendship, and shared memories. They spent the day together, laughing, learning, and reflecting on how much they had grown. As the sun set, painting the sky with colors of pink, orange, and gold, Ayana realized that life was full of lessons waiting to be learned, courage waiting to be discovered, and trust waiting to be shared. She had started her journey afraid, punished, and uncertain, but she now stood strong, confident, and ready to face the world. John had taught her not just survival skills, but wisdom, patience, and the true meaning of bravery. That evening, as the stars appeared overhead and the wind whispered through the grass, John and Ayanna sat quietly by the fire. They shared stories, memories, and laughter, savoring the quiet comfort of companionship. Ayanna realized that courage was not only facing danger, but also embracing life fully, learning from experiences, and trusting in oneself. John realized that life's rewards often came in unexpected forms. A young girl's growth, a bond of trust, and the knowledge that he had made a real difference. In the weeks and months that followed, Ayanna continued to grow, her confidence spreading to those around her. She shared her knowledge with other children, helped her family in new ways, and faced life with courage and determination. John continued his work on the plains, but the presence of Ayanna in his life, even occasionally, reminded him of the power of guidance, trust, and the quiet impact of kindness. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Ayanna walked to John's cabin, carrying a small bundle of herbs and a simple handmade gift. She knocked on the door, her heart full of gratitude and respect. John opened it, smiling warmly. "Hello, Ayanna," he said. Ayanna handed him the gift, her eyes shining. "I wanted you to have this," she said softly, "to remember what we learned together." John accepted it humbly, touched by the gesture and the thought behind it. They sat together, sharing stories of the village, the plains, and the lessons learned. Patience. Ayanna had grown into a confident, capable young girl, ready to face the challenges ahead. John had witnessed her transformation, knowing that their time together had created something lasting, a bond of trust, courage, and shared experience that neither would forget. Psst. As night fell, the stars twinkled brightly above, and the plains lay calm and serene. The journey of fear, courage, and trust had reached a meaningful conclusion, leaving both Ayanna and John changed forever. She had discovered strength within herself, and he had rediscovered the rewards of kindness and mentorship. Their story, born from an unexpected encounter, had grown into a lasting testament to bravery, friendship, and the power of believing in someone when they needed it most. Best. And so, under the vast, endless sky of the plains, the cowboy and the young girl shared a quiet, lasting moment. One that celebrated courage, wisdom, and the bonds that could change lives forever.